Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Tyler Mannion. Thank you for joining us. Today marks 1 year since the announcement of the first patient with COVID-19 in the United States. It happened in Washington State, where a man in his 30s had just returned from visiting Wuhan, China. He started experiencing symptoms and sought help at a clinic. Over the course of the last year, that one case has grown exponentially into 24 million confirmed in the U.S. alone. This morning, Arizona health officials reported 4,748 new cases of coronavirus, along with 209 additional deaths. That brings the state's documented totals to over 732,000 infections and more than 12,400 fatalities.
The Senate is going to press forward on another COVID relief bill. We want to work with our Republican colleagues to advance this legislation in a bipartisan way. But the work must move forward, preferably with our Republican colleagues, but without them if we must.
Besides the $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill, President Joe Biden is also proposing a plan to vaccinate 1.5 million Americans every day. The federal government has already distributed 41.4 million vaccine doses across the country. And once you get the first dose, you'll be notified to make an appointment for the second. For more information on local vaccination sites near you, just go to maricopa.gov and click on the COVID-19 vaccine tab. Yesterday, Arizona's Cactus League threw a curveball into the Major League Baseball spring training plan. The executive director of the league, as well as some leaders of the cities where spring training stadiums are located, addressed a letter of caution to the MLB commissioner. The letter asks to delay the start of the spring training season because of the pandemic. It also expresses concern over playing ball and providing proper protocols for fans, while Maricopa County's infection rate remains as one of the highest in the nation. But the MLB Players Union released a statement stating that they're adamant about starting the season on time. Arizona now holds the record for the fastest turnaround from passing recreational marijuana to launching sales. Abigail Varick was at a dispensary when the sales began and tells us people in line were excited to make purchases. Abby?
When I arrived, the line to get into the actual dispensary was around the building. However, people were in and out in 15 minutes. Harvest House of Cannabis was one of the first dispensaries to sell recreational marijuana in the state. They were ready for the rush, hiring extra employees and preparing for a socially distanced crowd. CEO of Harvest House of Cannabis Dispensaries says that the Department of Health Services made the application process simple, which allowed them to open their doors for sales of adult use marijuana.
We didn't know that we were going to get the approval when we got it, so there was nobody here. Then we quickly started putting out that information across our social channels, and the line started developing pretty quickly.
White says it only took 2 months from voters approving recreational marijuana to more than 70 stores selling across the state. The CEO also told me he thinks Arizona can be an example for other states on how to efficiently start the process of legalizing recreational marijuana. In the broadcast center, Abigail Verwick, Cronkite News.
As the Biden administration prepares to bring its agenda to Congress, Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema says she won't vote to end the filibuster. The rule requires most bills to reach at least 60 votes to pass the Senate, but with the Democrats only holding a one-vote majority in the chamber, key parts of the Biden agenda, including coronavirus relief, are now expected to face an uphill battle without Republican support. Winter weather has arrived here in the desert, and pictures and videos are pouring in on social media, showing snow, hail, and rain showers sweeping across the state. Flagstaff and Payson and Tucson have all seen snowfall just in the past 24 hours. The National Weather Service in Flagstaff reported 14 inches of the white stuff falling Monday through midnight. And even Phoenix and Scottsdale got a light dusting of snow. Phoenix also tied a 23-year record yesterday for the coldest afternoon temperature, dipping as low as 36 degrees here in the valley. And right now, a winter storm warning remains in effect for areas above 4,000 feet across northern and eastern Arizona, including the Mongolian Rim. And there are several road closures in place as well. So before traveling, you may want to go to the Arizona Department of Transportation's website to check out the full list. Meteorologists say the skies should clear up by this evening, with temps dropping near zero tomorrow in the high country. Lows will be in the 30s in the valley Wednesday. Then brace yourself for another round of storms Friday, bringing more chances of rain and, yes, snow across Arizona. Right now, hashtag Kobe Bryant is trending on Twitter. That's because today marks the one-year anniversary of the basketball star's death. Suns point guard Chris Paul said yesterday he will always remember Bryant's legacy and what he meant to him.
Kind of surreal, for a lot of guys in our league. Kobe was sort of this mythical figure. Some of them didn't get a chance to know him, but for some of us, he was a friend, a brother.
Even though he was a rival of the Phoenix Suns his entire career, Arizonans are still paying their respects to the legendary player. Coming up next on Cronkite News, COVID concerns in Congress. We take a look back at what some of Arizona's politicians had to say about the coronavirus outbreak next. And on Break It Down, how the pandemic is contributing to childhood hunger.
Stream the best of PBS on any device with the PBS Video app. All your favorite drama, history, science, news, and documentaries, all in one place. Watch your PBS station live or catch up on the shows you missed. Discover new favorites from PBS and locally produced shows from your station.
Sign in and start streaming today.
I think he was a terrific father, sometimes. I think that he was a loving husband, sometimes. I think he was like so many people, except this enormous talent. Hemingway is very complicated. I hate the myth of Hemingway. It obscures the man, and the man is much more interesting than the myth.
Coming in April to Arizona PBS.
Congress has already gone remote, sort of. Most hearings are a combination of virtual and in-person witnesses. And the House is allowing floor votes by proxy for the first time in its history. But it's not been a foolproof safeguard, as I found out with Arizona's congressional delegation.
4 of Arizona's House members have been in quarantine because they either tested positive for COVID-19 or may have been exposed to the virus. That's almost half of the state's House delegation.
My job is one where I have to meet with people, where I have to go out in public, and I also have to fly on a plane to get to Washington, D.C.
Debbie Lesko, the Republican congresswoman from Peoria, home quarantined last month after she was exposed to someone who tested positive for COVID. But she says that as a member of Congress, it's hard to take precautions against the virus.
People want to come, they naturally just want to come up and talk to me, and they're usually right in my face. So I can't really control if people are going to wear masks or not.
So far, 70 members in the House have either tested positive for COVID or quarantined because of possible exposure.
Well, unfortunately, the House and Senate have not developed a uniform safety standard like any employer of their size. There's 15,000 people working on the Capitol campus.
Arizona's House delegation has the highest percentage of quarantined members in the country. In addition to Lesko, Representatives Paul Gosar and David Schweikert also quarantined, and Congressman Raul Grijalva tested positive for COVID. In a statement released after he tested positive, Grijalva said that he would not blame anyone directly, but, quote, numerous Republican members routinely strut around without a mask to selfishly make a political statement. Representatives Grijalva and Ann Kirkpatrick from Tucson are the only 2 Arizonans who have voted by proxy because of the pandemic.
As soon as COVID broke, it was months ago, I caught the first flight out. I took it seriously.
Kirkpatrick left D.C. and closed her offices to the public and made operations remote.
So it's serious. You know, we're trying to do everything we can to get the message out to people, to take every precaution necessary. And I personally am trying to lead by example.
She urges people to stay socially distant, as difficult as it may be.
It's been tough. You know, I'm a people person. I like my colleagues. I always spend time on the House floor talking with a group of colleagues.
Lesko says it's important to follow health guidelines, but disagrees with the Democrats' decision to allow proxy votes.
We actually think if nurses and doctors and grocery store workers and everybody else has to go to work, I think members of Congress should have to go to work too.
Since the death of George Floyd, Black Lives Matter protesters and Trump supporters have been lining the streets of Gilbert and Warner. The two groups show up every Thursday to counter-protest each other, but it's hard to say how much change both groups are actually achieving. In the midst of our country's civil unrest, protests like these are occurring every Thursday in Gilbert. For months, these protests have remained peaceful, but as more people begin to show up, the tension increases. On August 20th, there was the first and last occurrence of violence. Gilbert Police Chief Michael SOELBERG shares what happened.
And within the first couple of minutes, the first assaults occurred, where we had people come from the north side down to the south side and confrontations and several fights. And it took us about 5 or 6 minutes to get there and get everyone separated out. From that point forward, we have had a physical presence as well as the barricades.
SHAWNI KINGSLEY has attended about 6 protests since the beginning. She says she comes out to support President Trump.
I want to be heard. I want to be heard, and I want to support police, and I want to support America. I want to support Trump. I want to support Republicans. I want to support positivity and love and unity of America.
Despite wanting to promote peace and unity, both groups that attend these protests have completely different views. VELI, who supports the Black Lives Matter movement, wants to shed light on the importance of the social injustices occurring in our country.
Our message is to let everybody know that 1, Black lives will always matter. 2, brown lives will always matter. No human is illegal. Science is real. We need to reform the police. And we can achieve all this through nonviolent means. But the only way they can get anywhere is if we get the recognition that we deserve. Because all you see on the news is the riots and the looting because it's propaganda. Take a look at what democracy, and this is really what America looks like. Every single beautiful soul behind me, this is what America looks like. And we will continue to be out here until we receive the justice that we seek.
There is no expected end date for these protests, but according to the Gilbert Police Commander Joe Rodriguez, the turnout seems to be decreasing each week. According to Chief SOELBERG, each protest cost the department about $20,000 a week, which includes food and water for officers as well as personnel expenses. As long as protesters continue to show up to these events, so will Gilbert PD will also be in attendance.
A recent study from USC Annenberg's Medica Impact Project finds immigration is overcriminalized on television. One advocacy group is working with the entertainment industry to change the immigrant narrative. Cronkite News reporter Kylie Cochran shows us how they hope to move audiences into action.
How do you define American?
My parents and I came through the Arizona desert. I am a first-generation Mexican-American, and I am very proud of my cultural background.
To be an American, it means that you come from diverse backgrounds.
3 faces, 3 different stories. These are the types of authentic stories the advocacy group Define American helps the entertainment industry tell about immigration.
At its core, Define American is working to create a narrative shift.
Elizabeth Voorhees is the Chief Strategy Officer at Define American.
And that narrative shift will ultimately create a change in perception and behavior, which can lead to the way that folks interact with immigrants in their communities.
That shift starts at the center of popular culture, television and film writing rooms, where Luis, Ulysses, and Bianca's stories are told.
Bringing in immigrants, undocumented immigrants, to the writers' rooms to help inform those stories and make sure that they're accurate and authentic.
Sarah Lowe is the director of research at Define American.
We then do a feedback loop with the research and see how that television season then played out in terms of the representation.
Define American has consulted on over 50 film and television projects. So just sit back, turn on your TV, and they may have consulted on one of your favorite binge-worthy TV shows, like Orange is the New Black or Superstore, your favorite network, like ABC or NBC, or even your favorite streaming channel, like Hulu and Netflix.
Our approach at Define American really is grounded in research. So we've been doing research with the Norman Lear Center at USC.
We analyzed all immigrant characters across the 2018 to 2019 TV season. And we also studied the impact of 3 major storylines from the 2018 to 2019 season that had nuanced depictions of immigrants and immigration on Madam Secretary, Orange is the New Black, and Superstore.
Compared to 2018, they found a 12% drop in the depiction of immigrant characters and crime, but it's not comparable to real-world numbers.
I mean, when much of what we see on TV is portraying immigrants as criminals, it really becomes a lot easier for people to believe false claims and divisive rhetoric.
The report did find that rhetoric can change when audiences are exposed to in-depth immigrant storylines on Madam Secretary or with Superstore's undocumented character Mateo.
Among the Superstore viewers that had no real-life contact with immigrants, these feelings of friendship with Mateo were associated with support for less stringent immigration policies.
Define American actually consulted on Superstore for 4 years. After watching, audiences reported taking action around immigration issues by volunteering, talking with family, marching, or donating.
Being able to look at the type of impact that it's having and hope for the future that building more of these characters and helping writers' rooms write characters that are really fully realized and that are really human and allowed to be human.
Kylie Cochran, Cronkite News.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.